Welcome to In Presence We Trust, a podcast about the art and heart of holding group transformational spaces. I'm Rachel Rickards, founder of the Field Facilitator Training. In Presence We Trust is a sanctuary for aspiring and experienced facilitators seeking to evolve their emergent facilitation and embodied leadership. In each episode, I will be harvesting insights from leading-edge facilitators doing transformational work in fields like relationship, embodiment, therapy, intimacy, education, and Tantra. In this episode, I am joined by yet another very special guest, Mr. Shawn Roop. Shawn of Tantra Quest offers tantric wisdom through classes, events, and personal counseling. He's making ancient teachings accessible for everyday modern life. With over 20 years of experience, he simplifies Tantra, providing life, relationship, and communication skills to unlock your personal potential and deepen connections. In the conversation you're about to hear, Shawn shares his journey from military service to becoming a Tantra facilitator, explaining how Tantra is a path to a well-lived life grounded in trust, communication, and self-discovery. He redefines sex in the context of Tantra, focusing on liberation and expansion. We dive into the lessons Shawn's learned from all the mistakes he's made as a facilitator, also speaking into the power of body wisdom and the importance of creativity and resourcefulness in navigating life's challenges. Shawn emphasizes the difference between goals and intentions and talks about how Tantra is less about fixing and achieving and more about depth, connection, and self-exploration. If you are ready to begin, join me by taking a deep breath. If I had to pick a nature element that I would associate you with, it would be the sunshine. You're like a light, and it's very infectious to be around you. So thank you for joining me and being here, Shawn.
You're so welcome. Thanks for having me on, Rachel.
Yeah. And so I would love to just start out. Could you just give us a little kind of an introduction to who you are as a facilitator, and like, what are you most excited about facilitating right now? Like, what are your groups? What does your work look like in the world?
Thank you. By the way, I just love the word facilitator. It to me, it has so much more going on than, let's say, teacher or some other things, because it really is something I attempt to embody, which is facilitating, which means, I'm not the only game in town, and I know that. But what I would like to do is have someone who's called or interested to work with me be called to do so because they're trusting a process of facilitation.
Really?
So years ago, back in 91, I was in the military, and I had plans on doing a specific job, but I happened to be in basic training during Desert Storm, Desert Shield. So basically what happened was they canceled everyone's agreements to what you were supposed to do as the careers that they had set up when I signed up. And so the guy sat me down and he's like, well, what do you want to do? And I gave him the job I wanted to do because I'm sorry, I can't give you that one. It's already completely filled. There's nothing I can do about that. I'm like, okay. And he goes, well, how about if you just like shoot guns all day? I'm like, what? Shoot guns? I'm in the Air Force. Like, what was that all about? What he didn't tell me, it was as an instructor role. It was to be a teacher, to teach people, law enforcement, basically, how to basically do weapons. And I said, okay, but he didn't tell me that one piece, which is that you're going to be teaching these things. And so it was the beginning of something that's happened a couple of times in my life where I was just thrust into this facilitation role. And it's very ego confronting because I wasn't particularly the most seasoned marksman. And here I am talking to people who are twice my age, and I'm trying to tell them how to do something. But what I've found is it's less about that, as if you can convey information clearly to whoever's listening and then trust that they're picking up what they need to. They'll ask questions. you provide some sort of opportunity for them to try it on, and you make small corrections without making them wrong, what happens is something really incredible occurs, and that's empowerment.
Mm.
And I learned that at a very early age. So then come into now I'm out of the military and I'm off doing other things. Feels like a whole nother life chapter.
I
And
bet.
I was learning about Tantra, and the teacher I had at the time said, "I'd really like you to teach." And I'm like, "Oh, no, 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 I'm not here to teach. This is totally my personal journey. This is what I'm doing. I don't want anything to do with teaching." And she said, "Well, you know, you learned NLP, neuro linguistic programming. You learned NLP, so why don't you just come and do a small section on how to create from beyond limitation?" And I said, "Yeah, I can do that. I can do that. I'll give you like a 2-hour slot. That's easy for me to do." And I did that. Well, she didn't let me off for the next 7 days. She didn't get me off the stage. She kept calling me up on the stage to the point where in the morning she's like, "Okay, so do you need water up there?" And I'm like, "I'm not teaching." She's like, I just need you to be up there." And it was so incredible that she completely tricked me for 7 days to teach about a topic that I was not ready to teach, in my opinion. But she was sharing with me that your viewpoints, your passion is everything. And it's not coming from this egoic place. I'd really love for you to share. And so I got tricked into teaching my very first time into Tantra. Well, now fast forward 24 years later, I'm still sharing Tantra with people from a facilitation place. And I've gone on to grow and evolve myself in all kinds of, of different aspects of Tantra. But one of the most beautiful parts is I keep growing. So my facilitation is dictated by my own growth, by my own experiences. So that's what makes me passionate, is to really stay contemporary and let teachings that I have stay in the most organic and contemporary nature based on where I am in life. And there's people who repeat the same class over and over again because they know it's going to be different, because I'm going to be coming from where I'm at today, which means there's going to be new content. So I'm passionate right now about really supporting people in understanding that we don't have to fight through these concepts of change, that the change is already happening. It's about really becoming more embodied and accepting to these aspects that are already going on. There's the world's turning, time is moving. So how do we do that without all the over control? And so these are really big pieces of what the wisdom of Tantra shares. And so I'm really hip to share that as well, from a kind of a rebellious and different way. So it feels good.
Thank you for sharing about your experience in the military. I didn't know that about you. And I'm just curious. I'm like missing a piece. Like, how did we go from military to Tantra?
Yeah, right.
Like, what,
I love this. I love this bridge, because this will all you need to know. I went from teaching people how to kill to teaching people how to love. That's a huge growth. That's like massive life understanding right there.
Yeah.
So it was a really beautiful thing. And yes, there was something in between all that, which was, okay, it's odd, but I used to make toe rings and I had a toe ring shop in Laguna Beach, California. I became the second largest manufacturer of toe rings in the country at wholesale, and I had the retail shop, and it was a family business, and it wasn't my business. It was a family business. But I created systems, and I created basic manufacturing like platforms for our business, and I was teaching people even then. I was like facilitating them how to be jewelers, so I could take anyone and help them, and it was a skill set. And then, you know, between and then once I started teaching Tantra to today, there's been some weird stuff that's happened. And there was this one point where I was on the big island of Hawaii, and the economy shifted in 2006 and 2007, and I was having a hard time getting people to come to the islands. I had a school on the big island of Hawaii, and so Tantra really went. It was like hard to find anyone to work with and make a living doing that. And so I started this company called iPod Repair. And it was basically because iPods, there was no Apple stores in Hawaii. So people had to throw away their devices, whereas it was really easy to fix them. it got so big and so busy that I had to hire people, and I started training them to do that. But my business partner would laugh because it would always come to a place where I started talking to them about the relationship, started talking about empowerment, so I talked about their purpose. And the person's like, you're really only happy when you're really supporting people with facilitation into a life well lived. I think you should really go back to Tantra. So that person bought me out, and I went right back to it.
The word facilitate, I'm sure you know this, but it means to make easy. And as you've been explaining your perspective on facilitation and what you're supporting people to do, it is so much that supporting people to make life easy, or to come back to just making it simple again and ease. Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. That's right. I find that that's a really big change from some people, because I also facilitate people to become facilitators. And what I find is a lot of people have this kind of mindset that they need to teach people how to be better people, or they need to fix the world, or something in those lines. And I really get it. And there's a lot of passion, a lot of love, and there's a lot of desire to really see a better world. And that's why they're doing something. But what's interesting is when a facilitator comes across from a place that it's not about what I think a person should do, it's more about where are they and how can I get them into that flow, so that whatever it is they want to produce in life, that it's easy to do that, whether it's love, whether it's their business, whether it's spirituality, whether it's like world peace. It doesn't matter. Like the answer to world peace is here. It starts here. If I'm at peace here, then I'm going to project peace outward. So to help facilitate that process of how to access that, instead of trying to wait for the world to change, something amazing occurs.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
So, bringing it back here, I'm curious, what is your right now, like I'm imagining that you as a facilitator, you're facilitating very much is as a reflection of the personal growth journey that you're taking yourself on. So like as you integrate something, it becomes something you teach or a new workshop. I'm curious, and maybe this is a little bit of an edgy question, but what is your growth edge right now? Is what are you still working on integrating that will probably be something you'll teach next, but it's still in process in you?
Yeah. Right now, I'm working on a program called the Unlit Wick, which is basically about a concept called the innate truth. And the innate truth is this idea that there's this truth that we're born with inside of our bodies. It's beyond anyone's teachings or anyone's influence. It's in our DNA, and you can't be given it, and you can't give it to anyone else. It's your truth alone. That is so important to a human being, because we lose contact with this at a very early age, because we're as human beings, especially for me, when I was a child, I really wanted to, number one, not be shushed all the time. I really wanted to be loved, and I wanted to be accepted within all the different aspects of a childhood. So my truth becomes secondary as I listen to other people's truths or needs, and then I move from that place. And so this innate truth is a spiritual concept that is taught in what's considered in Tantra. It's called the Mahasiddhas. And so for me, those are the ones who are traversing through the unknown paths of living. They're using all kinds of different ways about that, but there's a quality of that individual that is a Mahasiddha who has reached or attained a certain experience of life where their path isn't interrupted by anyone else's path. And so the teaching, that's like, okay, I'm not trying to get people to become Mahasiddhas. I'm saying that those people have taught something. And one of the greatest teachings around that is this idea of called the innate truth. So right now, for me, I just moved from California to North Carolina, and I've lived all over the world, and I've traveled, and I've been to a lot of places. But there's a certain flavor to all the places I've lived in. And the concept of moving to North Carolina is nuts on paper. It's nuts. Because of all of my bias and all the things, how I saw this area and this state and the people in this region, which is all very stereotypical. I'll own that. I live in a small beach town. It's sweet. It's quiet. It's easygoing. It's playful. It appreciates community and appreciates nature. And it also slows down to the point, like when I moved to this place, within 5 hours, I knew more people in the little complex that I moved to than I did the whole time I lived in my neighborhood in San Diego.
Wow, interesting.
People came out of their houses to say hello, to have conversations, to engage, and they continued to. We got phone calls from people as we were like settling in, just to make sure we're okay. Do you need someone to go to dinner with, or do you need suggestions for a place to buy something? And there was just this sense of you are a human being that's now part of our community. We want you to be successful and thrive here too. That's definitely not the experience I was having when I was living in San Diego, which is about a hustle. It's a lot of hustle over there. So I really appreciated that. And I don't know if I could have read that on a website. I don't know if I could have researched that. There's a truth inside of me that said, it's time to move. And this is the place to go. And I'm like, why? Why here? There's a lot of other places. Like, let's go to Thailand. Nope, not going to Thailand. But Thailand's nice. Nope, we're not going to Thailand. This is not your truth. Yeah, it's true. But there's just a thing that unfolded, and even though I was in resistance through it, that was my own pain. The resistance was the pain. If I was willing to just get on board with this truth that was happening, my whole experience could have been a lot more easy, graceful, and connected. But instead, I had a lot of fear. I had a lot of trepidation. I was like putting a lot of walls in front of me. And so it became a very hard experience. And there were a lot of exit points I could have taken to just bail on the whole idea. Well, I've noticed that that's true for a lot of people in life, not just about a move from California to North Carolina. There's a lot of places in life. It could be around a relationship, around being in family, a job. There's so many things that comes up where our brains get all very, very busy, and this truth gets pushed to the side, and all of a sudden there's pain that's happening. So I'm really excited to be able to explore this more, because it's something that I got a lot of physical symptoms from what was going on. And boom, like there's no need for that. There was no need for that, except for the fact that I learned. There is a point to it all, but I would say that it didn't have to be as challenging as I made it. Does that make sense?
Totally. And so like, totally. I'm in a similar position right now, similar in the topic of moving.
Okay.
A year ago, I moved to the Azores Islands, which was like an insane decision to move to this place. It doesn't make any sense. And it doesn't, I've been here a year. It basically hasn't worked. And we've decided to throw in the towel and leave and basically move back to where I came from, which was Berlin.
Okay.
And it all happened really quick. And I'm probably right at that place with you where I've been like suffering. And so what the question that's coming for me is like, knowing what you know now and the journey you've been through, what would you tell yourself at the beginning of that situation that maybe would make the process a little bit easier or pleasurable even?
Yeah. I would definitely say that my body had a lot more wisdom than I was letting it give me, because my intellect was in front of it. So I was looking for practicality. I was looking for sures. I was seeking to design the map for what I was going to do next, instead of really trusting what my body was telling me when it came to things. Because the body doesn't know how to lie. It just doesn't lie. It's the head can give me a lot of lies, but that body, no part of it lies.
Yeah.
So to really slow down and recognize it as its wisdom keeper that it is, and to return to, I know it may not make sense, and there's something happening. Trust this. Just take this move, because just like all the other moves, even if it's the wrong move, You'll navigate it.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's okay. Because I could come up with the reasons with money issues, friends, comfort, on and on and on and on. Doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. Yes, it does feel the body. Because when you think about that, the body relaxes. When you think about staying in the current situation, it hurts. That's wisdom right there. I know the unknown is spectacularly uncomfortable a lot of times. And in that unknown, it's where also innovation comes from. It's where inquiry lives, wonder. So there's so much more in that. There's so much life in that stuff than me creating a roadmap and already living in the known habited patterned experience. So resourcefulness, creativity, those are always the answers out of these issues. So the more I live in the remembrance of creativity as the access point, all this becomes far more easy too. So anytime I have what's in the way or what, how do I blank? It's like, okay, I just need to get creative. What's in the way so I can move to the next thing. And that's what it says right there. What's in the way? What's in the way is the part of life that is the right question to be asking, not the how. What's in the way? And so personally for me, I would say during my journey, what was in the way was a lot of uncomfort with what I didn't know. Once I got here, this makes sense. Okay, great, perfect. I get it.
Yeah, so letting go of the need to know and being okay with the discomfort of not knowing, but trusting that there's a deeper wisdom that's guiding.
And I trust you as a person to really understand that body has a lot of communication to offer you. I mean, I know you know this.
Yeah.
And so, but it's putting that online with honor, with that it's not froofy or it's not just an exercise. It's truth. That's where that innate truth lives, is within this body. And I know sometimes we have partners and we have business all these things can get in the way of what's happening. But then what happens is if there's an integration between the other players in their body and your body, then something really starts to mesh. And then all of a sudden it doesn't feel so complicated, that the adventure is far more interesting than the complication.
Beautiful.
It's mental masturbation, just a worry. It is. I do it. I don't know why I do it, but I choose to. I'm not a Mahasiddha, that's for sure. I'm not enough worse. Yeah.
Oh, thank you for that. I want to circle back because actually I haven't talked to someone who I think has as much experience and wisdom around Tantra as you. And so I'd love to circle into to Tantra and just start kind of with the basics of I would love to hear how you define Tantra now, what it is for you as you're working with clients or working with groups. What are you inviting people to explore through Tantra? Yeah, it's a big question.
To me, Tantra is a path to a life well lived. It's recognizing that there are so many parts of life that merge, that if I'm playing them singular, in singular nature, things get complicated. For instance, trust and security. If I just live from trust and security, I'm leaving a whole bunch of the other parts off the table, which could actually support that experience. But sometimes in life, I get really mono-focused on one part of life because I'm trying to control something. And Tantra really expands things. Tantra's far more interested in the expansion than the contraction. And I think that's dangerous for a lot of people, because I think a lot of people are much more comfortable with contraction of things, so it's manageable, than the constant expansion of things, which is absolutely chaotic and organic. It's nature. So it's returning people more to that natural state of our full nature. And that's where we can go to the next level. So a lot of the work that I'm doing is helping people just return to a natural state and then start to recognize next steps. Because a lot of times people have artificially created with this idea of what life looks like and what it's supposed to look like, by the way, usually influenced by a lot of other human beings. And so when that starts to shuffle out, then all of a sudden there's like, oh, wow, it's all a lot easier, just like a tree. It's like, yeah, it's just like a tree, exactly. And so a lot of my peers, they really focus on the sex bit. And that's because Tantra doesn't shy away from that topic. And I do teach people around sexuality and relationship. I just don't market it and focus directly on that one. I'll tell you what, it's a lot. My business would be a lot bit busier and a lot easier if I just focused on sexuality, truly. But what I've noticed when it comes to sexuality and Tantra, if one's not willing to redefine sex, they're never going to get the teachings that are being offered around sexuality when it comes to Tantra. If I keep producing my Western upbringing around sexuality and then impose or kind of overlay tantric teachings, it will shuffle out pretty fast and won't stick. It won't root. It's like planting something without really good soil. So the only way to really understand the sexual teachings around Tantra is to completely redefine what sex is. So Rachel, if I were to ask you, what is sex?
Well, sex would be like lovemaking. Sex would be physical intimacy and connection between my body and other bodies.
And Tantra would say sex is an opportunity for someone to open up a funnel on the top of their head and to allow the universal downloads to be produced within our own body. And then they fruit off of us like a tree. And that's what we share with the world. Yeah, see, that's pretty nutty. That's very esoteric. I get it. Right. But all that stuff around about love and connection and intimacy, those are all inherently installed in it, but it's not the focus.
Right.
The focus is on a deeper sense of communication, understanding of self, and sharing of self. That's the order. And I find that when one starts to understand that more, then the teachings start to make sense. Why would you soul gaze in someone's, like, why would you be in Yabyum, which is like one person sitting in cross-legged and another person sitting on top of them, and the couple is embracing naked and possibly even engaged in like naked genital connection, and then staring at each other. Why would anyone do that? You know, a lot of times it's done in a workshop. A lot of times it's done to create kind of like a firework like experience exercise. The point of that is to see yourself. It's to stare so deeply into another person's eyes that you can actually see yourself and how magnificent you are. Because the person who's doing that with you wouldn't be doing that if they couldn't see your magnificence. So it's this idea I get to lose all these preconceived notions and I get it beyond that. And when that happens, when I see myself in the world and how incredible I am, then all of a sudden I get to share that with someone. And there's such gorgeous power. That kind of stuff.
That's nice.
That is nice. So it goes pretty deep when it comes to the sexual stuff. So when I share, I'm doing it from a very different place than a lot of my peers. So Tantra to me is a place of liberation. It's the access point to liberation. And it's been taught that way for thousands of years. And I hold a particular lineage, and that's how my guru shared it with me.
Do you want to share more about the lineage of where you come from? And I'm also just curious, like, how that military guy joined a lineage.
Whoops, what a mistake that was. Yeah, it was. I just there's no way that I would have sat in high school with a guidance counselor and said, I would like to be a Tantra facilitator. Yeah, that's not happening. It didn't exist. So how does anyone get to this place? It's usually because we stumble into it and then we courageously choose to follow it.
Yeah.
So I had started studying esoterics before the military, but then I didn't know what to do with it. So I just joined the military. And it was funny because I couldn't really get away from it. Magic and supernatural things kind of still followed me, even to the point while I was in the military. This is not a lot of people know this about me, but I actually was trained to be what's called a remote viewer in the military, and American tax dollars paid me to be basically a psychic that was trained. And my job was I could stand outside of a building and find what's going on inside the building just with my mind. I could walk around a building, and I was trained in the military how to do that. That's
Really?
insane.
That is insane. I've never heard of something like
Yep.
that.
So then there's other remote viewers that remote view into time. And then what they do is they look for events before they happen. So basically you might have 50 people sitting and they'll say, we have some intel that says something's going to happen, remote view into this date. And then 50 people will remote view into it. They write their findings. They give them to analysts. They crunch data and they start making plans. This is for real. This happens. This is real.
And how do they train you? What does the training for that look like?
It's simple. It's not even hard. Anyone can do it, which is crazy, which goes back to the innate truth. But basically when I got billeted for that program, I went into this large room, and there was Marines, and there was Navy, and there was Air Force, and there was the Army guys. And so it was multi-agency in this room. And basically they gave us a series of tests, and they've separated the room, and the majority of people went off into that room, and some of us went into that room. And the ones that went into this room, we just basically showed aptitude for what they were going to be teaching, which was remote viewing into space.
Wow.
So my final for that was I had to stand outside of a room. This was in England. There was a building, and I had to find a package and give all the details of where the package was. So they gave me the color and the dimensions of the package and where is it in this building. And so after about 30 minutes, I thought I found it, and I wrote the name of the apartment building. The apartment number, and I even gave the details that there was a People magazine with a picture of Princess Di on it, and it's right next to that. And then it's in this room, and so on and so forth. And then basically they say, okay, we're going to walk up. And so the whole class follows me, and I take them right to where it was. And I can't make any veers because I already gave the direction, and there was the package.
Whoa. That is so crazy.
It is. So anyway, so then when I got out of the military, I didn't go, I think I still had an interest and a calling for that, which was kind of supernatural and esoteric. And then I was in a funky ass relationship, and then I heard Sting and Trudy talking about Tantra, and I wanted to have sex for 8 hours. That sounded fun, because that's what they was talking about. Which, by the way, it turns out that Sting was off the record, and that whole thing happened in Vanity Fair. Anyway, just I went online, and I went in AOL and I found someone that looked legit who was teaching Tantra, which was interesting, and booked a session, and off and running I was going. And what I thought was to learn how to give to a woman so they would have more pleasure, I ended up having a deep relationship with myself. That wasn't my intent. That's what I walked away with. That changed my life forever.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Wow. Wow. And then so you go to Tantra thinking you're going to learn how to better pleasure a woman.
Give. I just want to give.
Just give.
I just want to give. I don't get.
And you end up having a deeper relationship with yourself.
Totally.
Go on a self journey. Now you're like fully immersing yourself in Tantra. At what point are you like, cool, now I'm supposed to be a facilitator of this?
Yeah, that comes because that same teacher who I ended up having a relationship with. was the one that kept pushing me. And I'm like, no, 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 no. I don't want anything to do with this. And they're like, I don't think you have a choice. I'm like, I have a choice. And I say no. But once I did that, once I got tricked to do that, something incredible happened. It did feel simple and it did feel right. She was spot on. So for me, it was about continuing that path. And honestly, that wasn't the best choice because I yielded my own magnificence to her out of a sense of respect, I think. I think it was misplaced, but a sense of like, this person, it knows more, is bigger than I am. They're more popular than I am. So that's who I'm yielding to. Then what happened was we were engaged many years later, we're now engaged. We're still co-teaching and stuff like that together, but our relationship was strained pretty hard. And I was teaching and I realized that my partner was no longer sitting with me. She was sitting in the audience. And I didn't even really realize it. And then after that class, I asked her, I said, why were you sitting in the audience? She's like, where did you learn all this? I said, what? She goes, you're teaching stuff I don't know about. Where'd you get this stuff from? And what I realized was that I kept going. She had locked down the secret sauce, what was successful, what worked. And her facilitation just bordered on financial success. That's where her what the market wanted, that's what she offered. But I kept as a person exploring and exploring and exploring. And like I said in my intro, I really do share with what's going on with me. So if I'm learning something and it's really working with me and I have a capacity to hold it, well, why would I hold that secret? I'm not holding that secret. So I would let that stuff go. And so anyway, that happened to be Mahamudra. That was the lineage. You asked about the lineage. So what happened was I really started deeply down the path of Mahamudra Tantra, which is a Mahasiddha path, by the way. And so once my relationship separated, I went down a whole other path of expansion for myself. There was no longer tether on me. And I just burst open. And in that bursting, called in a new, basically a guru, which I was really anti-guru at that point. But anyway, I got a guru, and she was this old woman from India, and her name was Chandra. And Chandra basically handed me her lineage, which happened to be Mahamudra. Wow. So that was crazy because Mahamudra is not one of the more popular ones out there. And I didn't pick her because I didn't pick her. She picked me. And she had heard one of her students went to one of my classes in Canada, told her about me. And then she reached out and said, I'm your new teacher. I'm like, I don't need a teacher. I definitely don't need a guru. What are you talking about? I am a guru, whatever. And so what happened was a relationship that was insanely crazy and intense, but powerful. And I didn't have much time with her before she passed. She's no longer on the planet. But the thing about it is she was so laser beamed in what her purpose was to share and facilitate. There was no room for me to doubt. There was no room for me to get in the way. She was so on point. Yeah. There was just nothing got in the way. And I'm so thankful for that. Really, truly, so thankful for that.
Lucky, I know very deeply about that student guru relationship and the devotional aspects of it, but also the humility and the humbleness and the gratitude. So thank you for sharing that.
You're so welcome.
Touch into that.
It's interesting because one of our shared influencers in this life was with me during that time. So when the relationship ended with my partner, and I really went into that expansion point before Chandra showed up, David Cates was hanging out at my house, and he was just really influential into just bursting all the crap and just reminding me, you're here for this reason. If you shy away from it, it's just a waste of time. Stop. Just stop. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah. David has an amazing sword and ability to see
Totally.
like and just cut through the bullshit and like get you.
Right.
Yeah.
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 That's good.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that with me. I'll have to ask him. He's actually staying with me right now. So I'm gonna
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
yeah,
Please say hello and
say
send my
hello.
love.
I will.
Yeah.
I will. Yeah. And so you go on this journey and now you have something called Tantra Quest. And what is Tantra Quest? What does that stand for or represent?
Yeah, it's so interesting because Tantra Quest was designed in 2002 before the bigger motion of who I am today.
Oh, wow.
And so I created it and it stayed as kind of a vision. But here's what's interesting is Daniel Odier wrote a book called Tantra Quest on the same month of the same year.
No, I didn't know that was the
Yes, the book hadn't been out yet. And so I created the website and I took the domain name Tantra Quest. His brand, or at that time, was Tantric Quest. That was the name of the book and, the classes that went along with it. And so it was almost like there was almost like a bandwidth that was shooting across the universe and we both picked it up somehow.
Wow. It's really crazy how this happens.
Right.
It's really this like collective consciousness
Yep.
of all being tapped into something and then it coming through at the same time. Whoa.
Completely agree. Yeah.
Whoa. I didn't know that.
Yeah. When I first met Daniel, he was really pissed at me.
Yeah.
And then when I told him and I actually showed him, I went on GoDaddy and I said, this is when I bought it. He's like, whoa, that's so crazy. He goes, that wasn't the original name of the book. I'm like, oh, really? He goes, no, it wasn't. That's what me and my publisher settled on. I'm like, wow, that's crazy. Yeah, the working name of that book was something completely different.
So trippy.
Yeah.
Wow. And so, from what you set out to do, 22 years ago, and what it is now, do you still feel like Tantra Quest is the right name for you, or would you call it something different?
Tantra Quest for me continues to be the place because it is a quest. It's this journey. It's this sojourn. It's an adventure. It's an opportunity to dive into something that has no end. There's no black belt in Tantra. Okay, so it just keeps unfolding. So, for instance, in Mahamudra, it would take multiple dimensions of lifetimes to understand its wisdom. All I can do is do what I can do, and there's more than enough. There's no lack for me to explore. So the quest isn't so much about a destination; it's about this adventure that's unfolding in front of me, and just being present to that. And I would say it's the same thing when it comes to how I'm facilitating with people, because I really attempt to bust goals and to move into intentions, which can sometimes take you to places you don't even know you wanted to go to. So if I were to ask you, what's the difference between a goal and an intention?
Well, like a goal is kind of directional in that there's a end point that I'm hoping to get towards, and intention is more of an openness towards an energy or a idea, something that I'm intending towards, but not necessarily going to reach.
Right. So it's a starting point. So intent is like the starting point, and the goal is the destination point.
Beautiful.
So it's just a perspective shift, right?
Yeah.
So Tantra is inherently matriarchal. It's feminine in its wisdom. But by the way, this is a weird one as it being a man facilitating these wisdoms, because for me, I really honor that there's a certain understanding that women possess that I don't. There's a certain experience that women possess that I don't. There's hormones, there's life experiences, there's knowing, but there's also something else, which is that there's a direction of energy and how energy moves in that kind of body that's different than my body. And this wisdom was formed from that experience. So here I am, I'm doing my best. And honestly, I've just been humbled and wanted to walk away from it because it feels so odd in the sense of the experience that I have in this life But the women who have supported me to get here continually say the same thing. It's your voice and the way that you're sharing it is important. It's not the only way. It's an important way. And that's how Chandra, my guru, shared it. It's like, you need to let all this crap go. But she would say it in big, thick Indian accent. It's very important you let all this crap go. What are you doing? You know, so it was this really, really specific thing that was saying that it's not so much about gender, it's about this energy. And to just honor where the energy comes from, that's really that's all you need, because everything else will come if you can just do that. So Tantra, in its matriarchal nature, is so much more about how do things connect, depth and connection. How are there depth and connections to the experiences in life? Whereas sometimes if I get really in my masculine driven concepts, it's more about what am I going to do? How am I going to fix it? How am I going to own it? And so it's a reframe to all that kind of stuff. Well, what I've found is, for myself, and I love to share this, is that it opens me up to so much magic, so much ease, so much possibility, again, beyond what I know. So if I put the compass on the dashboard and I say, okay, I'm going to California from North Carolina, I may end up in New Mexico. I could end up in Canada. Because I'm just taking the journey, but I have a starting point. The starting point is west. That's all I start from. But there's not a destination and a time. It's just like, have that journey and let everything else unfold. Whereas if I get on an airplane, I want to get to my destination. That's the goal, right? So if I get on my plane and I want to go here, I better go there, because that's what I paid for, damn it. And that's the difference. You know, that's the different attitude, and one's quicker and one's more efficient, and the other one's much more adventurous and much more full of unknown. And life, it's full of life.
Beautiful. I'm just curious, is there a translation of this into who you are as a facilitator?
Yes.
So for example, yes,
great. 100%. So I know that it's important that I'm not making people me or how I think of things. Instead, I say things, and my hope is that it helps them remember something about themselves. So in other words, my facilitation doesn't tell people the specific way how to get to something. I'm much more interested in empowering people to figure it out, that there's these things get in the way. So let's move those things out of the way. So then it'll reveal itself, because there's 1,000 correct ways to do anything in life. There's not just one way. There's 1,000 ways. They're all correct. And that's hard. That's very, very, very hard. It's dangerous, even, to tell you the truth. It's a very dangerous path, because that means that, you know, if I feel completely right in stealing a candy bar because I'm hungry and I don't have any money, so I just steal a candy bar, Tantra would never say that's wrong. What it would say is, if it didn't feel good, then make an adjustment. So in other words, it's keeping your compass straight and on path by listening to your body rather than the formation of values and ideas. Now, that basically is the issue from the majority of people when it comes to sexuality. That's the biggest issue right there. A lot of their sex has been formulated through a lot of other crap. So the idea is to help shuffle some of that stuff out so that they can have their own pure experience of whatever that sexual experience means to them. And that's a lot of empowerment when that happens. A lot of there's no need to heal anymore, because what happens is they've come to a new reality. A new experience is on the horizon. But you can't control it. So it may seem wacky and crazy, like stealing the candy bar. I was like, that's wacky. That's kind of wacky. It's true. I don't need to kill someone to know I don't want to kill anyone. Right? I don't need to kill people to realize I don't want to kill people. Right? Because I have a sense inside of me, like, it doesn't feel good. I just don't want to do that. I hope that in this lifetime I don't have to. And so what that does is it gives me much more room to say, what do I want to do? So Tantra is far more interested in the yes in life rather than the no's in life. And if I dictate what is my correct yes, the no's are information that tell me I'm off path. That's it. So a no just says wherever you are right now, this is not the place you want to be. So navigate yourself back to your yes. And that's a very common tantric teaching. And that's how I facilitate. So I don't find there's the rights and wrongs in things. Instead, I find there's experiences to have. And the question is, are you present to that experience? And is it really integrating well? And if it's not, then you can make some new choices. And that new choice factor is where all the things that I offer, I'm just offering more choice. And that's interesting to me. I've made a lot of mistakes in my career, that's for sure. As a facilitator, I've made so many mistakes, horrible, horrific mistakes, juicy, hard ones.
Let's talk about one of those. Tell me something. Tell me something about one of these horrible mistakes. I have this too, and I keep saying to people, it's so unfortunate that the best way that I learn is by making mistakes. Because
sure. Well, because then you know what doesn't work.
Exactly.
That's right. Yeah. Sometimes you have to go through that. It seemed like it was a good idea on paper. It just doesn't turn out that way.
Does not turn out that way.
Right.
So what is in your facilitation like a big mistake you made where you really
I was teaching this class, and there was this woman who was totally Googling and eyeing me the whole class and was flirty, and she was attractive, and I was interested in all the attention that was brought to me. And so, of course, it seemed like that would be a very healthy experience to have, because the person had lots of experience. They were really solid in who they were, but there was some things I didn't know about, which was some hidden agendas. Those weren't expressed. Now, I wasn't mature enough to just get to the truth of things and see if there are agendas like I do now. Not to mention, I was moving more on chemistry rather than some other things that now, in my wisdom, I use more when it comes to making any kind of relationship or partnership of friends or family experiences that I might have, business partners or a lover. There has to be, I have more markers to look for, where back then I was like, she's got chemistry, I've got chemistry, let's roll. And,
there's
a yes, let's do it. Right. All right. So, we had an enchanted experience. I mean, it was like mindless, incredible timelessness. It was amazing. And again, it sounds horrific for a lot of people that a teacher was having something with a student. It was after the class, and the class was over, complete. The container was done, and we had this experience. So I just went all in. I was all in, like showing up with energy and heart, and just, she was doing the same, and it was just mind blowing. And I had a lot of great gratitude and cultivating that I did after that experience, which lasted about 12 hours. And she didn't live in the city I lived in. She lived in just a couple cities over. So she drove home. And I didn't see her for about 48 hours. And then the next thing I know, that someone's at the door. And our experience cracked her pretty big. And she went home and blew up her relationship. She blew up her job. She blew up her motherhood. And she had a bag in her hand. She said, well, I'm here. And I was like, oh. She's like, yeah, I mean, I don't ever want to go back to any experiences I've ever had. I want more of that. Well, then her fiance had called me and said, did she tell you that she got arrested just a few hours before that? I said, what? She's like, she went into a fountain at a mall and started spraying people with water, saying this was her Amrita to give to the world. For those of you who don't know the term Amrita, that's female ejaculation. And so basically she was splashing people in a mall from her genitals, and in a liberated state. What happened deeper was that there was an energetic crack that happened in her. There was a desire to have there was a lot of change she wanted in life. And this all of a sudden meant this was the universe giving her the answer of what the change was all about. And it was a lot of owiness. There was a lot of hurt. There was a lot of responsibility. There was a lot of shame on my part for what had happened. I didn't fully get it beforehand, but of course I could see all the stuff afterwards. All those pieces were there. And ultimately what happened was she never saw me as Shawn Roop. She always saw me as Shiva, the highest masculine deity in the Hindu pantheon. She saw me as Shiva and only Shiva. So I didn't even know I was in a kink role play thing going, because it wasn't me. It was some fantasy. And so I closed my eyes and I didn't do my due diligence and I didn't slow down to the human nature of what it was. I got drunk on the hormones. I got drunk on the opportunity. And it was expensive. It cost a lot of energy and emotions to fix and to not to really fix, but to clean up that situation, which it did. And yeah, that's a good teaching moment. Right. It was. And I see some of my peers who don't have those kind of experiences. They're sometimes they get really buffered and they get into a bubble where those kind of things don't happen. I was not in a bubble, and so it got really raw on me really fast. I'm thankful for
that. Yeah, there's so much to harvest in what you just shared. And one of the pieces I'm with, first, I just want to say thank you for the vulnerability of sharing that, because that's a big story. And that's like and it
early on in my career too,
which is even more, which is when those things happen, right? It's like, but it like, there's something for me, which you said that was like, you weren't Shawn, you were Shiva. And I find that happens so often as facilitators. We are the projection and the pedestalization of what sometimes people want to see, which leaves so much of the real human that's actually behind out of the picture. And I'm curious, like, what would Shawn today do differently in that situation again, if you were in?
I would show up with so much more grace and recognition for someone projecting on me, and see that for what it was, rather than my own self-esteem being fed something it really wanted. So my ego is more intact, and my needs are less today, because I'm much more self-reliant, and I have those muscles to take care of myself instead of put needs on others. What I'll say was, this is interesting. What I learned from that, it took a little while longer, but it was big, is that personally as a man, I longed for the validation of women because I didn't get validation from mom. So when a woman would show great attention, which was not something I had growing up, then it would be like crack. And so I mean, Rachel, honestly, what happened, and this broke it, and you may have seen it, it was me staring at a yoni for 8 hours. Just staring at a human being's yoni for 8 hours straight, without being able to touch it, without being able to kiss it or taste it or anything else. I looked at someone's yoni and then realized it was connected to the whole of a human being.
Wow.
And there was no conversations that I could have with that woman. All I could do was for 8 hours stare at a yoni. That cracked it. That changed everything.
Wow.
I know. And I went through lots of things: arousal, boredom. I even got angry. I'm like, wars have been started over this. to wonder, like, oh my gosh, this is like a Stargate. People come through here. This is crazy,
Oh.
And it's like, oh, it's this flesh, like an album. It had all of this stuff was able to be experienced within one experience, which then took all that, what has been taken away from me all these years, up to that point. All the mystery and all of the allure nature of it all, the chase, it was done. It was gone. And I wish I could have more people have that kind of experience, whatever it is that they long for and desire so deeply that they'll get in trouble for it, that they could have that there's so much freedom by just neutralizing it and recognizing it's part of everything. It's part of the whole. Yeah. So, but my female validation stuff was pretty huge, in fact. So it wasn't the best quality that I was having. And as a facilitator, I could measure that while facilitating, but the human would still come through.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course. Of course. Of course. Everyone is human on this journey, and we're all
totally
learning and busting through new thresholds. Thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate the relatedness and the humanity.
Thanks for that.
Yeah. Oh, I am loving sharing and speaking with you so much, Shawn. And as we kind of close our time here, I know that you're also a very well respected and well known practitioner. Just as much as you're a facilitator, you also offer insane sessions for people, which I've just heard about people's experiences of. Just as a closing here, I'd love for you to share how people can work with you. Like, what are the ways that you offer your services and yourself as, and what is, and how can they study with you in Tantra Quest?
So there's so many ways to get involved if someone wanted to explore Tantra and they felt that they were called to work with me. TantraQuest.com is the easiest way to start that journey. It gives understandings of what I'm doing, how I'm doing it, and to make sure it's a possibility, then the next step is to just reach out. We have a conversation and see if it's something we want to do. But I offer sessions, even these days, it's quite easy to do this work over Zoom or a phone. But a lot of times, it's often people travel to me and they'll work, or I'll travel to them and we'll do longer work. I do personal life extended sessions, which basically could be 3 to 7 days long. And that's really digging in and diving into a desire to break through something, to move into the more, using the wisdoms and the magic of Tantra.
Thank you for that. That's very kind and generous of you. And I know what you mean. It's become so lucrative to charge a lot of money and be a millionaire and make 6 figures or whatever in today's. Any final closing remarks from you to kind of tie a bow on it?
Everyone listening, it's just important that they recognize that there's 2 things that you can do every day to have a far more easy and graceful experience of life, and that's empowerment and embodiment. You are the source of so much. You don't have to get into power struggles. You are the source. You are the power. Empowerment. And the next place is embodiment. Please don't leave that on the table. Your body is such an important part of this. It's easy for the mind to run. The body's where it's at. It's just everything. When you put embodiment and empowerment together, things just work. I just want to share that. And that's straight Tantra right there.
Thank you so much, Shawn, for being here and for your time and for your very generous shares.
Thanks, Rachel. So great to be on. Thanks for asking me.
So good to see you again. Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much for tuning in again and listening to this next episode of In Presence We Trust, the Facilitation Podcast. If you've been enjoying this podcast and the journey we've taken you on, I can highly recommend checking out my new online 6-month field facilitator training, trauma-informed and certified. For this new special training environment, I've partnered with Catherine Hale, who you might remember from episode 6 of In Presence We Trust. Together, we are relaunching and redefining the field curriculum for trauma-informed space holding. This new pioneering training for embodied leaders and group facilitators will begin in February 2025 and includes a 2-phase certification process. To find out more, head over to my website, www.the-field.com/online. It's going to be an incredible 6-month journey, culminating in the first ever official field festival happening August 15 to 20, 2025, which will include many headlining familiar names and faces who you've already met from this podcast. Special thank you to all the beings who have contributed to the creation of this podcast: Michelle, Vaishnavi, Joby, Lavinia, the Soundfields, Thomas and John. And thank you again for joining as we continue the journey and open up this new communal space and learning environment that is In Presence We Trust. You can subscribe or follow wherever you get your podcasts. And if you're watching on YouTube, please feel free to like and comment below. Or head over to Facebook and join the In Presence We Trust community to continue the conversation there. Until next time, deep breath.